along the lines of intervention to possibly be used as a tool instead of our law enforcement department. And you say 20,000 kids. I have to believe that only a portion of those students, maybe a small portion of those students, are really fearful of this ordinance, because the majority of them are like my children and others on this council that respect the educators, respect the system and the rules, and they abide by them. So, you know, when we throw 20,000 out, that sounds pretty dramatic, but I think we need to kind of cut to the quick and see that it's only a handful that would really be out there being truant at any rate. The safety issue, having kids off the street that might pose a threat to children that you know would otherwise be okay. The same could be said with adult drivers. You know, it's just a small percentage of students that might pose that risk. And so I see us kind of splitting hairs on several different fronts, but at the end of the day, for me, I see this ordinance impacting the freedoms and liberties of people that shouldn't be affected by it. It's affecting them.
Well, you know, on that point, what I would answer, you are the elected officials to represent the city. I was hired to educate children. When I mention children who are fearful, there's only one group of children who need to be fearful of the police in Bedford, and that's the kids who are supposed to be in school and they're not. Mm-hmm. And if you're not supposed to be in school, there's no reason to fear. If you're educated at home, there's no reason to fear. The only kids who should be afraid are the ones who are supposed to be in second period, but instead they're out on the street. And then to answer the other question, it's between parents and it's between teachers, and, you know, at what point do we stop? You know, and I don't mean this to sound as flippant as it's going to, but how many kids are you willing to lose? Because unfortunately, some of them don't have adults to represent them. They meet those adults when they go to school. The adults they meet at school help mold their life, help open their world to the world it can be. They don't meet those folks at home. Is that our responsibility, to make sure that everybody be a good parent? I don't know if it is or not, but my charge is no child left behind.
I'm sorry, are you through, Jeff?
Mr. Case, I know when Mr. Cargill spoke to y'all before, he presented some information. I don't know if he gave you, but class cuts and tardies counts. And I wish I had it here to be able to kind of help answer your question. In the fourth 6 weeks, which we just completed, at Trinity High School alone, I had approximately 250 students that had at least one class cut. Okay? That doesn't specifically answer your question about the number of truancies, but that's far more than a handful. When you say how many students are actually truant at a given time, Trinity High School alone is the only one I can speak for, but in the fourth 6 weeks, I want to say the number was pretty close to 200, 250, 275, somewhere around there, of students that had a class cut.
Could I respond? Then, that being the case, that's a high number. My question would be, how many citations were issued to those truant students?
And the problem is, what I was mentioning a minute ago about the state law. A class cut does not constitute a truancy. It has to be 2 or more periods before it can be counted as a truancy. So if the student only skips fourth, third period because that's lunch, that doesn't count as a truancy. So how many citations were issued for that? I can't answer that specifically, because it has to fit. For us to issue the citation, it has to fit within those laws of truancy, as opposed to the curfew.
I'm sorry, you misunderstood me.
Okay.
Class cuts, meaning the students left the campus?
At least was not in class. It could have been on the campus, just not in class.
In a
could have been either way.
restroom, they could have been, who knows?
Could have been either place.
But if they did leave the campus,
yes, sir.
My question is, how many citations from the city of Euless or the city of Bedford were issued?
As far as how many of the students got caught being
Yes.
off campus, is that what
Yes.
you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
I do not know the answer. To my knowledge, there hasn't been very many citations issued at
So
all.
we have
But-
no way of really knowing.
But what I.
No, we do, and the
I don't know.
gentleman that's coming to speak at 7 will have the numbers. Yes, we do. I just don't have it off the top of my head, neither does mine.
All right.
In that same discussion you're having, when does it become truant? In the morning prior to noon?
No, if they miss 2 or more periods a day, that meets
It
the
doesn't
legal
matter
definition
what
of
the
truancy.
period time is?
That's correct.
Beginning or afternoon class? Okay.
And then the parents have 72 hours
To-
to either legitimize that
Okay.
cut or it's,
Okay. Because we have been given some information, like as long as they were there until 10:30, in the state, they're counted, and then if they leave, would it be considered? So I wanted to clarify that. Okay.
Okay. Let me ask y'all, did y'all have anybody else to speak during this time?
no.
Okay, all right. So, any other questions, council?
Again, I really appreciate the opportunity to speak before you.
Don't run off, you just turn his light on.
Oh, okay.
Mine is not so much a question as just a statement again. There's been a lot of conversation about infringement of people's freedoms and rights to move about and so on and so forth. The fact is we have HB 776 and HB 2237 in place. State law is already addressing these types of issues. Just to make sure that we were not doing anything that was going to be